Orphaned Fawn seeks comfort in dog. Their bond will melt your heart. How will this story unfold? To find out, watch the video to the end. But first, please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications to get more stories like this. The forest was alive with the sounds of spring. Birds chirped joyously, their songs weaving through the canopy of leaves. A gentle breeze stirred the wildflowers that dotted the forest floor, carrying their sweet scent through the air. Amid this harmony of nature, a small, trembling fawn stood alone, its soft brown eyes filled with fear. The fawn had wandered for hours, searching for its mother. The doe had been its protector, its guide, but now she was gone. The forest, once a place of safety, now seemed vast and unfamiliar. The shadows beneath the trees felt like threats, and every rustling leaf made the fawn flinch. As the day wore on and the sun began to set, casting long, golden rays through the trees, the fawn stumbled upon a clearing. In the middle of the clearing stood a small farmhouse, its white paint glowing warmly in the evening light. Smoke curled lazily from the chimney, and the faint sound of laughter drifted through the open windows. The fawn hesitated at the edge of the clearing, its small body quivering with exhaustion and hunger. But something about the house, the warmth it exuded, the sense of life within its walls, gave the fawn the courage to take a step forward. And then another, and another. Inside the farmhouse, Clara was finishing up her evening chores. She hummed softly to herself as she scrubbed the last of the dishes, her hands moving rhythmically under the warm water. Max, her golden retriever, lay sprawled on the kitchen floor, his tail thumping against the tiles every time Clara glanced his way. "You're hoping for scraps, aren't you?" Clara teased, tossing him a piece of leftover chicken. Max caught it midair, his eyes gleaming with gratitude as he wagged his tail even harder. Just as Clara was drying her hands, Max's ears perked up. He let out a low bark, his gaze fixed on the window. Clara followed his line of sight and gasped. There, just outside the window, was a fawn. It was small, barely taller than Max, and its coat was speckled with white spots. But what caught Clara's attention was its eyes, wide and glistening, filled with a mixture of fear and hope. Clara moved slowly to the door, her heart pounding. She opened it cautiously, stepping out onto the porch. "Hey there," she said softly, her voice gentle. "It's okay. You're safe." The fawn froze, its ears flicking nervously as it stared at Clara. Max trotted to Clara's side, his tail wagging as he let out a friendly bark. The fawn flinched but didn't run, its legs too weak to carry it any further. Clara knelt down, her movements slow and deliberate. She reached out a hand, palm up, and waited. The fawn took a hesitant step forward, its nose twitching as it sniffed the air. Then, as if deciding it had no other choice, it inched closer, its soft muzzle brushing against Clara's fingers. "You're just a baby," Clara murmured, her heart aching at the sight of the frail creature. "Where's your mama?" The fawn let out a soft bleat, a sound so plaintive it brought tears to Clara's eyes. She placed a hand gently on its neck, feeling its rapid heartbeat beneath her palm. "Don't worry," she said. "We'll take care of you." Clara led the fawn into the barn, Max trotting close by. She laid down a thick bed of hay in an empty stall and brought out a bowl of water and a bottle of warm milk. The fawn drank eagerly, its small body relaxing as the warmth spread through its belly. Max lay down beside the stall, his watchful eyes never leaving the fawn. Clara smiled as she watched them, her heart swelling with a mix of love and sorrow. "Looks like you've got a new friend," she said to Max. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, her thoughts consumed by the fawn. Where had it come from? What had happened to its mother? And what would become of it now? But as she stared at the ceiling, listening to the soft sounds of the night, she found comfort in the knowledge that the fawn was no longer alone. It had found its way to them, and they would do everything they could to keep it safe. The next morning, Clara found Max curled up in the stall with the fawn, his golden fur pressed against its spotted coat. The sight made her heart swell. "You're such a good boy," she whispered, scratching Max behind the ears. The fawn, whom Clara decided to name Willow, quickly adapted to its new surroundings. It followed Max everywhere, mimicking his every move. When Max drank from the water bowl, Willow dipped her small muzzle in, splashing herself in the process. When Max chased a ball across the yard, Willow galloped after him, her gangly legs moving in uncoordinated but joyful strides. Clara watched their bond grow with a sense of wonder. Max had always been a loving and gentle dog, but with Willow, he seemed to have found a purpose. He became her protector, her guide, and her playmate, showing her the world beyond the forest she had known. As the days turned into weeks, Willow began to thrive. Her coat grew glossy, her legs grew stronger, and her eyes, once filled with fear, now sparkled with curiosity. She loved to explore the farm, her small hooves clicking against the wooden floors of the barn and the stone paths outside. But no matter where she went, Max was always by her side. One afternoon, Clara decided to take Max and Willow to the orchard at the edge of the property. The trees were in full bloom, their branches heavy with pink and white blossoms. The air was filled with the sweet scent of flowers, and the soft hum of bees created a soothing melody. Clara spread a blanket under one of the trees, laying out a picnic for herself and treats for Max and Willow. Max stretched out on the blanket, his head resting on his paws, while Willow pranced around the orchard, her small body moving with newfound confidence. As the sun began to set, casting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Clara felt a deep sense of peace. She watched as Max and Willow played together, their bond a testament to the healing power of love and companionship. "You've come so far, Willow," she whispered, her voice tinged with emotion. "And it's all thanks to Mac." Max looked up at her, his tail thumping against the blanket as if he understood. Willow trotted over, nuzzling Clara's hand with her soft muzzle. Clara stroked her gently, her heart swelling with pride. "You're part of our family now," she said, "and we'll always take care of you." The days on the farm became a blend of routine and joy, with Willow seamlessly integrating into her new family. Each morning, Clara would find Max and Willow waiting by the barn door, their eyes sparkling with anticipation for the day's adventures. The bond between the golden retriever and the fawn was something Clara could hardly describe. A connection so pure and unyielding it felt almost magical. Max had taken on the role of a mentor, showing Willow the ins and outs of life on the farm. Whether it was exploring the woods at the edge of the property, splashing in the shallow creek that ran behind the barn, or simply basking in the sunlight, Max led the way, always looking back to make sure Willow was close behind. One afternoon, Clara decided to introduce Willow to the orchard again, this time allowing her to roam a bit further. The orchard had always been Clara's favorite spot on the farm, and she hoped it would become a special place for Willow too. Willow's eyes widened as they entered the orchard, her gaze taking in the towering trees and the carpet of blossoms that covered the ground. She stepped cautiously at first, her delicate hooves barely making a sound on the soft earth. Max trotted ahead, his tail wagging as he turned to look at her, as if encouraging her to follow. It didn't take long for Willow to let go of her hesitation. She began to prance through the orchard, her legs moving with newfound confidence. She sniffed at the flowers, her soft nose brushing against the petals, and even attempted to nibble on a few, only to sneeze when a bit of pollen tickled her nose. Clara laughed softly, watching from the shade of a tree. She had brought a book with her, intending to catch up on some reading, but she couldn't take her eyes off the playful pair. Max darted between the trees, barking happily as Willow tried to keep up with him. The sight was a reminder of how far Willow had come since that first fearful night at the edge of the clearing. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the orchard in hues of gold and pink, Max and Willow finally slowed down, their energy spent. Max lay down under a tree, his tongue lolling out as he panted, while Willow curled up beside him, her body pressed against his for warmth and comfort. Clara took out her sketchbook, her fingers moving quickly across the page as she tried to capture the serenity of the moment. The way Max's golden fur shimmered in the sunlight, the soft curve of Willow's delicate frame as she rested. It was a scene that deserved to be remembered. "You two are something special," Clara murmured, her voice barely audible over the gentle rustle of the leaves. I don't know what I did to deserve you, but I'm so grateful you found your way here. As the weeks turned into months, Willow grew stronger and more independent, but her bond with Max remained unshakable. The two were inseparable, their friendship defying the natural order of things. Clara often marveled at how Max had taken on the role of protector and guide, showing Willow a world she might never have known otherwise. One morning, Clara decided it was time to let Willow explore beyond the boundaries of the farm. The woods that bordered the property were vast and filled with wonders, and Clara wanted Willow to experience them, knowing that Max would be by her side every step of the way. The trio set off early, the morning sun casting long shadows across the fields. Max led the way, his nose to the ground as he sniffed out the best paths, while Willow followed closely, her ears flicking back and forth at every sound. Clara walked behind them, her heart swelling with pride as she watched the two navigate the unfamiliar terrain together. The woods were alive with activity. Birds flitted from branch to branch, their songs filling the air, while squirrels darted through the underbrush, their tiny bodies a blur of motion. Willow's eyes were wide with wonder as she took it all in, her delicate frame vibrating with excitement. At one point, they came across a small stream, its clear water bubbling over smooth stones. Max waded in without hesitation, his paws kicking up tiny splashes as he barked happily. Willow hesitated at the edge, her reflection rippling in the water. But with Max's encouragement, she stepped in, her hooves creating small ripples as the cool water lapped at her legs. Clara watched with a smile as the two played in the stream, their laughter echoing through the woods. It was moments like these that reminded her of the simple joys of life, the beauty of nature, and the power of friendship. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, they ventured deeper into the woods. The trees grew taller, their branches forming a canopy that dappled the ground with light and shadow. The air was cool and filled with the earthy scent of moss and pine. They came across a clearing where wildflowers bloomed in vibrant colors, their petals swaying gently in the breeze. Willow pranced through the flowers, her legs moving gracefully as she sniffed at the blossoms. Max followed her, his tail wagging as he barked playfully. Clara found a fallen log and sat down, watching her companions with a sense of awe. The bond between Max and Willow was something she had never seen before, a connection so pure and unyielding it felt almost sacred. It was a reminder that love and friendship knew no boundaries, that even the most unlikely pair could find solace in each other. As the afternoon wore on, they began the journey back to the farm. The woods seemed quieter now, the sounds of the day fading into the soft rustle of leaves and the distant chirping of crickets. Max and Willow walked side by side, their bodies moving in perfect harmony. When they reached the edge of the farm, the sun was beginning to set, casting the fields in a warm golden light. Clara led them back to the barn, where she prepared a warm meal for Max and a bottle of milk for Willow. The two ate side by side, their movements synchronized as if they had been doing this their whole lives. Clara sat by the hearth that evening, her heart full as she watched her little family settle in for the night. Max curled up on his blanket, his golden fur shimmering in the firelight, while Willow lay beside him, her small body tucked against his for warmth. "You've come so far, Willow," Clara whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "And it's all thanks to Mac." Max lifted his head, his eyes meeting hers with a look of understanding that brought tears to her eyes. Clara reached out to stroke his head, her fingers sinking into his soft fur. "You're one in a million, Max," she said. "I don't know what we'd do without you." The days that followed were filled with more adventures, more laughter, and more moments of pure joy. Clara often found herself stopping mid-task to watch Max and Willow, their bond a constant source of inspiration and wonder. Whether they were exploring the woods, playing in the fields, or simply resting in the shade of the orchard, they were always together, their friendship a testament to the beauty of life's unexpected connections. Clara began documenting their journey in a journal, her words flowing easily as she captured the moments that had brought her so much happiness. She wrote about the first night she had found Willow, about Max's unwavering loyalty, and about the way their bond had transformed not just their lives, but hers as well. "This farm has always been a special place," she wrote. But Max and Willow have made it even more so. They've shown me the true meaning of love and friendship. And for that, I will always be grateful. As spring turned into summer, the farm blossomed into a haven of life and beauty. The sun hung longer in the sky, bathing the fields in golden hues, while the warm breeze carried the scent of wildflowers and freshly cut grass. Clara's days were filled with tending to her garden, caring for her animals, and, of course, watching the inseparable bond between Max and Willow grow even stronger. Willow's playful energy seemed to increase with each passing day. She had grown taller, her once gangly legs now sturdy and confident. Her coat gleamed under the sunlight, the white spots fading as she matured. But despite her growth, she never outgrew her dependence on Max. If Max lay in the shade of the orchard, Willow would curl up beside him. If Max darted across the fields, Willow was right behind him, her hooves kicking up the soft earth. One warm afternoon, Clara decided it was time to introduce a new experience to Willow. She had always wanted to take the pair to the far pond, a secluded spot surrounded by tall trees and wildflowers. The pond had been a special place for Clara growing up, a hidden gem where she often went to reflect and find peace. Clara packed a basket with treats, a blanket, and her sketchbook, then whistled for Max and Willow. Max came bounding out of the barn, his tail wagging furiously, while Willow followed at a more graceful pace, her ears flicking forward in curiosity. "Come on, you two," Clara said with a laugh. "We're going on an adventure." The walk to the pond was a picturesque one. The path wound through the woods, the dappled sunlight filtering through the canopy of leaves above. Max led the way, his nose twitching as he sniffed out new scents, while Willow stayed close to Clara, her wide eyes taking in every detail of the forest. When they reached the pond, Clara couldn't help but smile. The water sparkled under the sunlight, and the surrounding trees cast a cool shade over the grassy banks. Dragonflies flitted across the surface of the water, their iridescent wings catching the light, and a family of ducks paddled lazily near the shore. Max wasted no time diving into the water, his golden fur shimmering as he splashed around. Willow hesitated at the edge, her reflection staring back at her from the clear surface. Clara knelt beside her, placing a reassuring hand on her back. "It's okay, Willow," Clara said softly. "The water's nice and cool. Max will look out for you." Willow glanced at Max, who barked encouragingly, his tail wagging as he paddled in circles. With a deep breath, Willow stepped into the water, her hooves creating ripples that spread out across the pond. The cool sensation made her flinch at first, but she quickly grew accustomed to it, wading in deeper until the water reached her knees. Clara watched with pride as Willow began to explore the pond, her movements tentative but growing bolder with each step. Max swam over to her, his body cutting smoothly through the water. He nuzzled her side gently, as if to say, "You're doing great." The two spent hours at the pond, splashing and playing together, while Clara sketched the scene in her notebook. She captured the way the sunlight danced on the water, the joy in Max's playful barks, and the curiosity in Willow's wide eyes. It was a moment she wanted to remember forever, a snapshot of pure happiness. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting the pond in shades of gold and amber, Clara spread out the blanket and unpacked the basket. She laid out some treats for Max and Willow, along with a sandwich and a thermos of tea for herself. Max flopped down on the blanket, his wet fur glistening as he panted happily. Willow stood nearby, nibbling on the tender grass at the edge of the water. Clara sipped her tea, her heart full as she watched the peaceful scene before her. The bond between Max and Willow was something she never grew tired of witnessing. It was a reminder of the beauty of life's unexpected connections, the way love and trust could bridge even the most unlikely of friendships. "You two are quite the pair," Clara said with a smile, her voice soft in the quiet of the evening. "I don't know what I'd do without you." The journey back to the farmhouse was a slow and contented one. The trio moved at a leisurely pace, the glow of the setting sun lighting their path. Max walked beside Clara, his tail wagging gently, while Willow trotted ahead, her slender legs moving with grace. When they reached the barn, Clara prepared a warm meal for Max and a bowl of fresh greens for Willow. The two ate side by side, their companionship evident in the easy rhythm of their movements. Clara leaned against the doorway, her arms crossed as she watched them with a sense of quiet joy. "You've brought so much life to this farm," Clara said softly. Her words meant as much for herself as for them. "And I'm so grateful for it." The days that followed were filled with more adventures and discoveries. Max and Willow explored every corner of the farm, their bond growing deeper with each shared experience. Whether they were chasing butterflies in the fields, napping under the shade of the orchard, or simply walking side by side, they were always together. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Clara sat on the porch with Max and Willow at her feet. The air was cool and filled with the scent of blooming flowers, and the distant hum of crickets created a soothing melody. Clara reached down to scratch Max behind the ears, her fingers sinking into his soft fur. "You've been such a good boy, Max," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You've brought so much love and joy into our lives." Max looked up at her, his warm brown eyes filled with understanding. Clara turned to Willow, who was resting her head on Max's back, her delicate frame rising and falling with each steady breath. "And you, Willow," Clara continued, her voice soft, "you've shown us all the beauty of resilience and the power of love. I'm so proud of you." As summer gave way to autumn, the farm transformed once again. The fields turned golden, and the trees donned vibrant shades of red and orange. The crisp air carried the scent of fallen leaves, and the sound of geese flying south echoed across the sky. Max and Willow adapted to the changing season with their usual enthusiasm. They loved to play in the piles of leaves that Clara raked up, their laughter ringing out as they leapt and rolled through the colorful heaps. Willow, in particular, seemed to delight in the crunch of the leaves under her hooves, her playful energy undiminished by the cooler weather. Clara watched them with a smile, her heart full as she sipped a mug of hot cider. The bond between Max and Willow was a constant source of inspiration and joy, a reminder of the simple beauty of life on the farm. One chilly morning, Clara decided to take Max and Willow on a walk through the woods to see the fall foliage. She bundled up in a warm coat and scarf, then called for Max and Willow. Max came bounding out of the barn, his golden fur shining in the morning light, while Willow followed at a more graceful pace, her coat now a rich, warm brown that blended perfectly with the autumn colors. The woods were a sight to behold. The trees were ablaze with vibrant hues, their leaves carpeting the ground in shades of red, orange, and yellow. Max and Willow moved through the woods with ease, their movements in perfect harmony as they explored the beauty around them. Clara followed behind, her heart swelling with pride as she watched the pair. They were more than just companions. They were family, bound by a connection that transcended the ordinary. The crisp air of autumn carried a sense of renewal as Clara, Max, and Willow ventured deeper into the woods. The path ahead was scattered with freshly fallen leaves, crunching softly underfoot. Max trotted with his usual enthusiasm, occasionally darting off to sniff at something intriguing before returning to Willow's side. Willow followed in her quiet grace, her large, curious eyes soaking in every new sight and sound. They came across a cluster of trees where the sun filtered through, casting a golden glow over the forest floor. Clara paused, taking in the serene beauty of the moment. She found a large rock to sit on, her sketchbook in hand, while Max and Willow explored the area. Willow discovered a patch of mushrooms growing near the base of a tree. She sniffed them cautiously, her nose twitching. Max, ever the protector, barked softly as if to warn her to be careful. Willow looked at him and then stepped back, her trust in Max unwavering. As Clara sketched the scene before her, she couldn't help but marvel at the bond between Max and Willow. It was a connection that defied logic, a friendship that bridged the gap between two vastly different species. Max, with his boundless energy and unwavering loyalty, had become more than just a companion to Willow. He was her guide, her protector, and her closest friend. Clara's pencil moved swiftly across the page, capturing the way the sunlight danced on Max's golden fur and the delicate curve of Willow's slender neck. She wanted to preserve this moment, to hold on to the magic of their friendship forever. "You two are something special," Clara murmured, her voice barely audible over the gentle rustle of the leaves. "I don't know what I did to deserve you, but I'm so grateful you're here." The trio continued their walk, the woods opening up into a wide clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a massive oak tree, its branches stretching out like arms embracing the sky. Clara had always loved this spot. It was a place of quiet reflection, a sanctuary away from the hustle and bustle of daily life. Max ran ahead, his tail wagging furiously as he barked with excitement. Willow followed at a slower pace, her steps careful and deliberate. Clara watched as Max reached the base of the oak tree, sniffing around before letting out a series of playful barks. When Willow joined him, Max began to dig at the ground, his paws moving with purpose. Willow tilted her head, watching him curiously before lowering her nose to the earth. She sniffed the spot Max had been digging, then looked up at him with a questioning expression. Clara laughed softly. "What have you found now, Max?" she called out, walking over to join them. To her surprise, Max had uncovered a small wooden box buried beneath the leaves and soil. Clara knelt down to examine it, brushing away the dirt with her hands. The box was old, its wood weathered and its hinges rusted. She carefully pried it open, revealing a collection of trinkets inside. A faded photograph, a handful of coins, and a small, carved wooden figurine. Clara's breath caught in her throat as she held the photograph up to the light. It was a picture of a family standing in front of the very oak tree they were sitting under. The edges of the photograph were worn, but the smiles on the faces of the family members were unmistakable. "Looks like we've stumbled upon a bit of history," Clara said softly, her voice filled with wonder. She showed the photograph to Max and Willow, as if they could share in her discovery. Max barked happily, his tail wagging, while Willow nuzzled Clara's arm, her warm breath tickling her skin. Clara placed the trinkets back in the box and closed it carefully, feeling a sense of connection to the past. She made a mental note to research the history of the farm and the family in the photograph. For now, though, she was content to simply sit under the oak tree with Max and Willow, soaking in the beauty of the moment. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the clearing, Clara decided it was time to head back to the farmhouse. The journey back was peaceful, the trio moving in harmony as the woods slowly gave way to the familiar fields of the farm. When they reached the barn, Clara prepared a warm meal for Max and a bowl of fresh greens for Willow. The two ate side by side, their companionship evident in the easy rhythm of their movements. Clara leaned against the barn door, her heart full as she watched them. "You've brought so much life to this farm," Clara said softly. Her words meant as much for herself as for them. "And I'm so grateful for it." As autumn gave way to winter, the farm underwent yet another transformation. The fields were blanketed in snow, and the trees stood bare against the gray sky. The crisp air was filled with the scent of pine and the occasional sound of a distant crow. Max and Willow adapted to the changing season with their usual enthusiasm. They loved to play in the snow, their laughter ringing out as they chased each other through the drifts. Max would plow through the snowbanks with boundless energy, while Willow followed behind, her slender legs moving gracefully through the powder. Clara watched them with a smile, her heart full as she sipped a mug of hot cocoa from the porch. The bond between Max and Willow was a constant source of inspiration and joy, a reminder of the simple beauty of life on the farm. One snowy afternoon, Clara decided to take Max and Willow on a walk through the woods to see the winter landscape. She bundled up in a warm coat and scarf, then called for Max and Willow. Max came bounding out of the barn, his golden fur contrasting beautifully with the white snow, while Willow followed at a more cautious pace, her coat blending perfectly with the muted tones of the forest. The woods were a winter wonderland, the branches heavy with snow and the ground sparkling like diamonds in the sunlight. Max and Willow moved through the woods with ease, their movements in perfect harmony as they explored the beauty around them. They came across a frozen stream, its surface smooth and glistening under the sun. Max tentatively stepped onto the ice, his paws slipping slightly as he found his footing. Willow watched from the edge, her ears flicking back and forth in curiosity. "It's okay, Willow," Clara said encouragingly. The ice is strong enough. Max will show you it's safe. With Max leading the way, Willow cautiously stepped onto the ice. Her hooves clicked against the frozen surface as she found her balance. Clara held her breath, watching as Willow took her first tentative steps on the ice. Max barked happily, running in circles around her as if to cheer her on. The trio spent hours exploring the frozen landscape, their laughter echoing through the woods. Clara couldn't remember the last time she had felt so at peace, so connected to the world around her. Max and Willow had brought a sense of magic to her life, a reminder of the beauty that could be found in even the simplest moments. As the sun began to set, casting the woods in a soft golden light, Clara led Max and Willow back to the farmhouse. The air was crisp and filled with the promise of a cozy evening by the fire. When they reached the barn, Clara prepared a warm meal for Max and a bowl of fresh greens for Willow. The two ate side by side, their companionship evident in the easy rhythm of their movements. Clara sat by the fire that evening, her heart full as she reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. Max and Willow had not only transformed her farm, but had also transformed her life. Their bond was a reminder of the power of love, trust, and the beauty of life's unexpected connections. "You two are my greatest blessings," Clara whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "And I'll cherish every moment we have together." As the days grew shorter and the chill of winter deepened, Clara found herself savoring every quiet moment with Max and Willow. The snow piled high around the farmhouse, creating a serene, white landscape that seemed untouched by time. Despite the cold, the warmth of companionship filled the air, radiating from every shared glance, every wag of Max's tail, and every gentle nuzzle from Willow. Max and Willow quickly adapted to the routines of winter. They discovered new ways to play and explore in the snow, creating paths that wove through the drifts like secret trails. Max loved to burrow his nose into the powder, emerging with a comical dusting of snow on his face, while Willow's careful movements left behind delicate hoofprints, as if she were a living piece of art. Clara often joined them, wrapped in her thickest coat and scarf, her laughter echoing as Max and Willow bounded around her. On particularly cold mornings, she would bring out warm blankets and lay them near the barn, creating a cozy space where the three of them could sit together and watch the world turn white. One afternoon, Clara decided to take a longer walk with Max and Willow. She packed a thermos of hot cocoa, a tin of cookies, and a small camera to capture the beauty of the season. The three of them set off down the path that led away from the farmhouse, the snow crunching softly beneath their feet and hooves. The woods were breathtaking in their winter stillness. The trees stood tall and bare, their branches coated with frost that shimmered like diamonds in the sunlight. The path was quiet, save for the occasional chirp of a bird or the distant crack of ice in the stream. Max moved ahead, his nose to the ground, while Willow stayed close to Clara, her wide eyes taking in the unfamiliar landscape. As they ventured deeper into the woods, Clara felt a sense of peace wash over her. The world around her was so quiet, so serene, that it felt as though time itself had slowed. She paused to take a photograph, framing Max and Willow against the backdrop of snow-covered trees. The image was perfect, a testament to the beauty of their bond and the magic of the moment. The trio eventually reached the clearing with the old oak tree. Even in winter, the tree stood as a symbol of resilience and strength, its massive trunk and sprawling branches defying the harshness of the season. Clara spread out a blanket at the base of the tree, pouring herself a cup of cocoa while Max and Willow explored the area. Max found a stick buried beneath the snow and brought it back to Clara, his tail wagging furiously. She laughed and threw it for him, watching as he darted after it with boundless energy. Willow watched the game of fetch with curiosity, occasionally trotting after Max but never quite grasping the purpose of the game. Clara felt a pang of gratitude as she watched them play. Max and Willow had brought so much joy and meaning to her life, transforming the quiet solitude of the farm into a place of laughter and love. They were her family, and she couldn't imagine life without them. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting the woods in shades of pink and gold, Clara gathered her things and prepared to head back to the farmhouse. Max and Willow followed her closely, their movements in sync as they made their way through the snow-covered path. The farmhouse was a welcome sight, its warm lights glowing like a beacon against the darkening sky. Clara ushered Max and Willow inside, brushing the snow from their fur and coats before settling them in their usual spots by the fire. The crackling flames filled the room with warmth, and the scent of pine logs added to the cozy atmosphere. Clara prepared a simple dinner, setting out a bowl of hearty stew for Max and a plate of fresh greens for Willow. The two ate side by side, their companionship evident in the quiet rhythm of their movements. Clara sat nearby, her own plate in hand, watching them with a sense of contentment. That evening, as the wind howled outside and the snow fell steadily, Clara found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. She thought of the day she had found Willow, frightened and alone, and the way Max had taken her under his wing without hesitation. Their bond had been instantaneous, as if they had been destined to find each other. Clara reached for her sketchbook, flipping through the pages filled with drawings of Max and Willow. Each sketch told a story, a snapshot of a moment in time that she never wanted to forget. There was the drawing of Max and Willow napping under the apple tree, their bodies curled together in perfect harmony. Another showed them playing in the snow, their joy practically leaping off the page. She paused on a sketch of the old oak tree, its branches stretching out like arms embracing the sky. The tree had become a symbol of their journey, a place of reflection and connection that grounded them in the beauty of the present moment. "You two have given me so much," Clara whispered, her voice barely audible over the crackling of the fire. "You've shown me what it means to love and to find joy in the simplest things. I don't know what I did to deserve you, but I'm so grateful you're here." The following days were filled with more quiet moments of togetherness. Clara spent her mornings tending to the farm, with Max and Willow always close by. The afternoons were reserved for walks in the woods or cozy hours spent by the fire, while the evenings brought the comforting routine of dinner and storytelling. Max and Willow had become inseparable, their bond deepening with each passing day. Max's playful energy was the perfect balance to Willow's gentle curiosity, and together they brought a sense of harmony to the farm that Clara cherished. One morning, as Clara was preparing breakfast, she noticed Max and Willow standing by the window, their eyes fixed on the snow-covered fields outside. The sight made her pause, a smile spreading across her face. "What are you two up to?" she asked, her voice filled with affection. Max barked softly, his tail wagging, while Willow nuzzled his side. Clara walked over to the window, following their gaze to the fields beyond. The snow sparkled under the morning sun, creating a landscape that was both serene and magical. "Maybe it's time for another adventure," Clara said with a laugh. "What do you think?" The trio spent the day exploring the farm, venturing to places they hadn't visited since the first snowfall. They followed the stream, now frozen solid, and climbed the hill that overlooked the farmhouse, its roof covered in a thick layer of snow. Clara felt a sense of wonder as she took in the beauty of the landscape, her heart full as she watched Max and Willow move together with an ease that spoke of their unbreakable bond. They were more than just companions. They were a family, bound by love and trust that transcended words. As the sun set and the sky turned shades of orange and purple, Clara led Max and Willow back to the farmhouse. The warmth of the fire welcomed them, and Clara prepared a hearty meal to end the day. Max and Willow ate side by side, their contentment evident in their relaxed postures and the easy rhythm of their movements. That night, as Clara lay in bed, she found herself reflecting on the journey they had shared. Max and Willow had brought so much light and love into her life, transforming the quiet solitude of the farm into a place of joy and connection. They had taught her to find beauty in the smallest moments, to appreciate the simple pleasures of life, and to cherish the bonds that make us whole. "You two are my greatest blessings," Clara whispered into the quiet of the night, "and I'll cherish every moment we have together." The following morning brought a sense of stillness, the kind that often precedes something extraordinary. The sun rose slowly over the horizon, its rays painting the snow-covered landscape in hues of gold and pink. Clara awoke to the sound of soft whines and scratching at her bedroom door. Max was eager, as always, to begin the day. All right, I'm up," Clara said with a laugh. Pulling on her robe and opening the door, Max bounded in, his tail wagging furiously, followed closely by Willow, who moved with her usual quiet grace. Clara greeted them both with gentle pats and warm words before heading to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. The scent of coffee and freshly baked bread soon filled the air, mingling with the warmth of the wood stove. Max and Willow sat patiently by the door, their eyes fixed on Clara as she worked. "Breakfast first, then we'll head out," Clara said, setting bowls of food on the floor for Max and Willow. They ate side by side, their companionship as evident as ever. Clara watched them with a smile, her heart full as she sipped her coffee. The day held a promise of adventure. Clara decided to take Max and Willow on a walk to the far side of the property, where an old and used barn stood nestled against the edge of the woods. It was a place she hadn't visited in years, and she was curious to see how it had weathered the passage of time. The trio set off, the snow crunching softly beneath their feet and hooves. The air was crisp and filled with the sound of their movement, accompanied by the occasional chirp of a bird or the distant creak of ice shifting in the stream. Max moved ahead, his nose to the ground, while Willow stayed close to Clara, her delicate steps leaving a trail of hoofprints in the snow. As they approached the old barn, Clara felt a sense of nostalgia wash over her. The structure had seen better days, its paint faded and its roof sagging under the weight of years. But there was a charm to it, a sense of history that spoke of simpler times. Max darted ahead, barking excitedly as he explored the area around the barn. Willow followed at a slower pace, her movements cautious but curious. Clara opened the door to the barn, stepping inside to find a space filled with the scent of hay and the quiet hum of stillness. The interior was dimly lit, with beams of sunlight streaming through cracks in the walls. Clara took a moment to look around, her eyes scanning the remnants of a life once lived here. A rusted plow, an old ladder, and stacks of hay bales that had long since dried out. Max and Willow entered the barn, their presence filling the space with a sense of life and energy. Max began to sniff around, his tail wagging as he investigated every nook and cranny. Willow stood near Clara, her wide eyes taking in the unfamiliar surroundings. "Looks like this place hasn't changed much," Clara said, her voice echoing softly in the quiet barn. "What do you think, Max?" "Willow?" Max barked in response, his tail wagging furiously, while Willow nuzzled Clara's arm, her trust in her unwavering. Clara spent the next hour exploring the barn, her fingers brushing over the worn wood and rusted metal of the tools that had once been used here. She found an old saddle hanging from a beam and a pair of boots tucked into the corner, their leather cracked and faded. The barn felt like a time capsule, a place where the past lingered in the air like a memory. Clara couldn't help but feel a connection to the people who had once called this farm home, their lives intertwined with the land in ways she could only begin to understand. Max and Willow seemed to sense the significance of the place as well. Max moved with a sense of purpose, his nose leading him to a spot near the back of the barn. He began to dig at the straw, his paws moving with determination. "What is it, Max?" Clara asked, walking over to join him. She knelt down, brushing away the straw to reveal a small wooden box buried beneath the layers. The box was similar to the one they had found near the old oak tree, its wood weathered and its hinges rusted. Clara carefully opened it, revealing a collection of trinkets inside. A faded photograph, a handful of coins, and a small, carved wooden animal. The photograph showed a family standing in front of the barn, their faces lit with joy and pride. Clara felt a lump rise in her throat as she held the photograph in her hands. It was a reminder of the lives that had come before hers, the stories that had unfolded on this land long before she had arrived. She placed the photograph back in the box and closed it gently, a sense of gratitude washing over her. "Thank you, Max," Clara said softly, scratching behind his ears. "You always know where to find the special things." Max barked happily, his tail wagging, while Willow watched with quiet curiosity, her presence a steady comfort. As they left the barn and made their way back to the farmhouse, the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting the snow-covered landscape in shades of pink and gold. The air was crisp and filled with the promise of a cozy evening by the fire. Clara prepared a warm meal for Max and Willow, setting their bowls on the floor as they settled into their usual spots. The farmhouse was filled with the comforting sounds of crackling flames and the gentle hum of contentment. That night, as Clara lay in bed, she found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this point. Max and Willow had transformed her life in ways she could never have imagined, filling her days with laughter, love, and a sense of purpose. The following morning brought a sense of renewal. The snow had begun to melt, revealing patches of green beneath the white blanket. The air was filled with the scent of earth and the sound of birds returning to the woods.